webinar. The meeting will be recorded. It's great to have so many of you here today. Welcome to this joint webinar between the major groups and other stakeholders together with UN DESA, the UN agency, the Department for Economic and Social Affairs that oversees the high-level political forum. I'm very excited to open this with you. My name is Henman. I'm one of the two co-chairs of the major groups and other stakeholders, and I've been following the VNR process alongside many of you ever since 2016. And it's really excellent to see the progress that is being made. We know how important it is to continue to provide space for stakeholders to engage in the voluntary national reviews on the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is a crucial moment for many of us to really gear up that engagement towards this year's HLPF in July. We'll be hearing shortly now from Joop Theunissen. Wonderful to have you with us, Joop, from UN DESA, to set the scene and give us the overview. And then we'll go to my colleague Nelya Rakhimova, who many of you will know, who guides our VNR Task Group. So, Joop, over to you. You have the floor.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and good evening. I cannot see how many people we have. I see 99 participants. That is wonderful. My name is Joop Theunissen. I work in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I will be walking you through the basics of the HLPF in the next 10 minutes or so. I am presuming that you are not too familiar with the HLPF, and so I'm going to presume that this will be your first time. I know many of you will not be here for the first time, but I just have to go through the basics to make sure that we have common ground for everybody. Okay, next slide. So VNRs, what are VNRs? Voluntary National Reviews. These are reports by governments that are presented at the HLPF in July every year. The HLPF is the High-Level Political Forum for Sustainable Development. It is the annual meeting of the UN that monitors progress on the SDGs. In 2015, it was agreed that every country would volunteer to write a report and submit it to the UN on its own national progress on the 17 SDGs. So that's the idea. The principles were that they were voluntary. Not every country has submitted the VNR now. We'll discuss that in a minute. That they are state-led, that ministries take charge as they do, but at the same time that they provide platforms for partnerships with major groups and other relevant stakeholders, with civil society, with the business sector, with academia. The other principles are that they are meant to learn, that they facilitate the sharing of experience, that they are based in accordance with national circumstances. Obviously, we have a very diverse world, and the situation for Nepal is different for Germany, is different for Samoa, and that they are open, inclusive, and transparent so that everyone can participate in these reviews. So these are reports. The R for VNR stands for Voluntary National Review, not for report. But of course, the report is the ultimate result of the process of consultation that takes place at the national level. Next slide, please. So before getting into the VNRs a little bit in more detail, can you go back, Nelya? Yeah, this is the meeting, the HLPF, the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, that is taking place in July. It's a little bit later this year because in the beginning of July, there's another meeting of the UN on financing for development. Every year, the member states pick a theme and pick a number of SDGs under review. You can imagine if you have 17 SDGs, it is simply too much to review each of them every year. Also because, it's just not practical to be reviewing each of them every year. So this year, the goals under review are health, gender, growth and work, oceans, of course, also related to the Ocean Conference taking place in France in June. And as we have every year, Goal 17, means of implementation and partnerships. There's a team there. It's a very long title. It is basically a solutions HLPF. if you look at the 20 words that you see there, the word solution, that is the one that pops out. So it's a HRPF that is hopefully going to come with particular good practices and tools of implementation that can be used to reach the SDGs. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these VNRs, there's many of them. As you can see, every year we have about 40 to 50 even. This is a steady stream of reports. We have had 191, we will have in July, 191 countries that have presented a VNR, and many of them already for a second time, for a grand total of 366. This year we have 39, last year we have 36. It's not because we don't want more VNR reports. We do want more VNR reports. There's simply no time to review more VNR reports. So this year we set a maximum of 40. Actually, the maximum was set by the president of ECOSOC. This year it's the ambassador of Canada to the United Nations. And for any one of you who has been to the HRPF, 39 or 36 reports to review and presentations to review is a whole lot, particularly if you consider that it's not just a presentation, but also a discussion and a question and answer session on this report. So it's all quite tight, and it is really not doable to go over the number of 40. Next slide, please. So who are the countries this year? And it shows you really that this process is now quite mature. We have no more countries doing this for the first time. There's only 6 countries left who haven't done a VNR. So this time around, out of the 39, we have 2/3 or so that are doing this for the 3rd time already, and a good number are doing this for the 2nd time. Even some, Indonesia, Philippines, Qatar, and Guatemala, I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2 screens, we're doing it for the 4th time. So we just want to make sure that in this 15-year period, we have as many reports from as many countries as possible, but we also want to make sure that there are countries that are not lagging and not doing only one report. So this is a nice group. You can see it's very diverse from the various regions, 10 from Africa, 16 Asia Pacific, Eastern Europe 3, Latin America 6, and Western Europe 4. So again, this highlights the fact that the SDGs are not just for developing countries as the MDGs were, but for every country. So we do have Finland, Germany, Israel, Malta, and some other developed countries as well. Next slide, please. Now, you may wonder, how can we participate in that? And while I don't have a schedule for the program as such in this presentation, please note that in the last 4 days of the HRPF in July, we will have panel discussions where countries will present this VNR in a panel format. Normally, it's 2 or 3 countries at the same time, occasionally 4 countries. And after that, there will be opportunity for member states and for major groups and other stakeholders to ask a question to the presenter. Oli and Nelya are very good in organizing this on behalf of the major groups and other stakeholders. And usually there is a very well-established process of who gets to ask a question to whom. There is a VNR Task Group. I understand Nelya is coordinating that again this year together with Oli, and she will no doubt discuss this in more detail. Now, before I end, there are a number of resources here. These are all clickable links. Nelya will absolutely share these resources with you later on. Just really quickly, countries have guidelines that relate to the HRPF to make sure that they are evidence-based, that they are actually focusing on all the SDGs, that they highlight the proper progress and challenges, that they are statistically robust, and of course also that they are inclusive. I'm sure that is very important to all of you. We have a database of all the VNR reports on our website, so you can review them all in every detail that you need, plus other tools, best practices, a handbook for the governments, which of course we welcome you to read as well. We publish this every year, sometimes in a couple of different languages even. And we have produced a synthesis report every year, which is basically a meta summary of all the major trends that we have observed from these 40 give and take reports. So it is a lot of work. It's a complex undertaking. We are a small branch here. We usually grow in size when July comes. We have colleagues that organize various aspects of the HLPF, including the many side events to which we invite you, the many special events, the many VNR labs, and the many exhibits. Generally, we have 2,000 to 3,000 people in the building every July. And we hope that you will be one of them. So this is where I will end. I think Nelya will take over here about the engagement of the VNRs and on the various levels of engagement that you can undertake. Thank you all. I'll be listening in and see if I can answer questions. I do recognize there are some colleagues here as well who can jump in. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joop. And indeed, we welcome any questions. I will take over. My name is Nelya Rakhimova. And I just encourage everyone to put your questions in the chat. I also will come back to them later after I go through my slides, through my part. So I see that number of participants is still growing, and it's good. I hope that this information will be useful. Now I will take over already, so to say, on behalf of stakeholder groups, and we'll talk about how actually you can engage from different perspectives to the VNR processes. Just to start to again emphasize that indeed VNR process is a government-led process, but at the same time we need to understand that all stakeholders have rights, possibility to engage in the VNR process at different stages, at ideally all stages. And here we just provide another slide actually, which I think was introduced by UN DESA, this picture that various kind of stakeholders, not only government, should be able to engage in the VNR process. And here you see, maybe you even recognize to which group you belong, but we see here academia, scientific community, women, farmers, older persons, indigenous people. So I will not read all the groups listed here at this slide. So you just need to understand that variety of stakeholders can engage in this process. In the same time, stakeholders, independent stakeholders have different possibilities to engage. We, of course, will talk more in detail about a process that is facilitated by major groups and other stakeholders, but you need to understand that there are different paths. You can go through the path which would be led by the government. You can be that self-organized force at the national level that would engage stakeholders and organize themselves for the VNR process in your country this year. And of course, as I mentioned already, I will talk more about possibilities that is provided through major groups and other stakeholders today. So in terms of a process which is led by the government, and here there are different varieties, and of course it's not for us to identify what is available at the national level for you. It's mainly governments who decide how they actually run the engagement process. And again, thank you to UN DESA, to the colleagues. There are guidelines for the governments, there are workshops, consultations, how they can properly engage stakeholders at all levels of the VNR. But different governments, of course, decide differently how the process is led. And here we have different examples how it can be done. For example, countries can request stakeholders engage in the very beginning and provide their inputs through consultations or collect them through the online forms or other formats. Another process is when actually prepared the text of VNR is provided to stakeholders for comments, any revisions, and it can be also done at different stages, and we see that different governments also decide to go this way. Some governments give possibility to their stakeholders even to be part of the official delegation and present VNR with them together at the podium during the HLPF, while others probably can include stakeholders in the presentation, providing them additional space to provide comments directly during the presentation. So we see that it's different kind of processes, and of course it's up to you. You can also ask your government how they can engage you in the process, and maybe even demand that it's done one way or another. It's again up to you how you would prefer to engage. In terms of self-organization from the stakeholder side, we also observe many best practices, and here it's just one of them. It's parallel reports when civil society or other stakeholders organize themselves and produce so-called parallel reports. So we also call them civil society reports, shadow reports, spotlight reports, and here again it's a great tool. There are lots of methodologies developed how this report can be produced, how they can be used during the VNR year. It's a useful tool because it also helps stakeholders to follow up even after HLPF on SDG implementation at the national level. And of course, there are other tools that are available. And for example, Oli is here with us, and Action for Sustainable Development have such tool as a People's Scorecard, which also gives another possibility for different stakeholders to assess the progress at the national level. And you also can use such kind of tools. But of course, I am here today more to talk about major groups and other stakeholders possibilities which we provide. Again, just to clarify what major or groups are, or MGoS, if you hear the abbreviation. So MGoS, it's officially recognized network of volunteers, which is recognized by the UN and also member states, even in 1992, if you can believe it. It's the major platform for engagement of stakeholders, which basically opens the doors to different UN fora on sustainable development, where we can bring stakeholders to different stages of the processes and engage them directly. We are self-organized. Anyone can join this process through these groups through different constituencies that I also will show in a minute. We have a coordination mechanism, which is such a leading body of the whole structure of MGoS. And Oli exactly is one of the co-chairs who lead the coordination mechanism. And within the coordination mechanism, we also have task groups. And exactly VNR Task Group is one of these groups which are actually handling the process of VNR engagement during the HLPF. So here you can see that now MGoS has 29 groups. There are major groups, other stakeholders, and we also have regional engagement mechanisms. And actually, if you are not part of MGoS yet, you can still join. I would not promote all the groups here, but at mgos.org, we have descriptions of each group, and also contacts how you can actually get in touch with these groups. Every group functions independently, so I will not speak for every group, but just for your information, all this info you can find at our webpage. And at the same time, in terms of recognition and possibilities of MGoS, here you can see that there is a resolution that ensures the rights of MGoS to attend the official meetings of the HLPF, to prepare them, to intervene, provide statements, provide documents, different kind of recommendations, contributions, and also organize side events and roundtables. And in our case, what we are talking about here today is about exactly VNR sessions, where we as major groups and other stakeholders have possibility to engage in VNR presentation, providing for each country 2-minute statement, 2-minute intervention. And that's why we are here together today to explain you how it can be organized, because we think that it's really important that every national stakeholder has possibility and access to actually contribute to the statement or even deliver it. And here you can see our colleague from Nepal, who was presented this kind of statement last year at the official presentation by the government of Nepal, and she was speaking on behalf civil society from Nepal and representing a major group of children and youth. So, and now I will basically explain you how we actually arrived to this moment when one of the national representatives take the floor during HLPF and presents the statement. So we try every year to start as early as possible, depending on our capacities. And right now we are in February, but in February, in January, February, and March, our main responsibility to really make it clear that this process exists, that national stakeholders have possibilities actually to be directly engaged during HLPF. And that's why we are here today with you, organizing this webinar together with UN DESA. You can see that this is exactly scheduled in February, and during this month we have opened the online form, and this is basically our major activity to promote this form, that any stakeholder who is from VNR country or who is engaged or work with a particular with one of the VNR country can fill out this form expressing their interest, that they want to be part of this process, part of the preparation of the statement, and potentially probably present the statement during HLPF at the VNR session. So we are right now at the stage where we trying to engage and collect the interest of stakeholders. During regional forums, which you probably know, happening in 5 regions of ECOSOC, we also try to engage stakeholders, again, inform them, give them another possibility to fill out the form, to understand the process. And already in April, we start actively to engage with those who registered, still encouraging to engage and bring more stakeholders on board. And this is when our facilitators from our task group start already to organize online meetings, explaining again the process, providing all necessary documentation. And this is when we start to work on a statement. During this process, we also need to identify potential speaker and go through the process of selection of the speaker. This year, we will try to do it again as early as possible, because of course, I will talk later about it more in detail, but selections of the speaker is a really important stage, and we hope that in May we will identify speakers. In June, we try to finalize the statement also with the consideration of speaker abilities, if they speak slow, if they have, if it's a person with disabilities who will deliver the statement. So we need to do this final preparations and understanding how we as MGoS need to assist this person to already present their statement during the HLPF in July. So I will quickly go now through the principles of stakeholder engagement and selection of the speaker that we are all on board, everyone who decides to join this engagement process. So statements are developed in collaboration when people register for the process, and if they represent the country and work with the country, they have possibility equally engage in the process of statement preparation. We, of course, committed to the principles of respect, tolerance, non-violence, and we as facilitators try to do our best in order to facilitate this process, to moderate any kind of disagreements or any other issues that can appear during the process. Sometimes this happens, and this is what is also the role of neutral facilitator, which represented by MGoS VNR Task Group. The content of the statement is, of course, nationally based. We encourage colleagues to focus exactly on the national achievements, issues, questions, comments, anything which colleagues would like to include there. At the same time, of course, we try to encourage to look really at the VNR if it's available already, because it's really the best advocacy opportunity if colleagues actually can refer to existing text and point there, and it also ensures better follow-up with the government after the process. And as I mentioned, the statement delivery, of course, we try to facilitate the selection of the speaker. It's of course should be a national stakeholder and alternate, which is we are choosing together with stakeholders who participated in the process. At the same time, we still cannot guarantee, and colleagues from UN DESA can confirm it, that we had, at least not last year's, but in previous years, there was such situation, but that unfortunately still our speakers will not be able to deliver the statement after even all this process we are going through. But again, thank you to UN DESA and colleagues and moderators. In recent years, we didn't have such situations, and I hope that next year will be the same. What is also important to mention that sometimes we are doing video recordings for statement delivery, but of course it's our last reserve, our last plan B, and it's better to avoid it. In terms of speaker selection, because we decided this year to really stop on this, just to clarify it from the very beginning, that election process is running by colleagues themselves. We are there to facilitate, to help it, to observe it when it's necessary. And that's why we really encourage everyone to register who wants to engage in this, in the VNR process, because then it's transparent and fair process of speaker selection. At the same time, we completely understand that there are emergency situations when MGoS needs to step in, and sometimes like even the speaker and alternate are not available, cannot deliver the statement. And in this case, MGoS step in and takes this role and trying to find another alternative emergency speaker. Sometimes it's delivered to MGoS by MGoS colleagues. Just that you know, yeah, such situation can also happen. For us, it's really important that a selected speaker, and if you consider to be one, you should not have any affiliations with any governmental structures, and you should not be part of official delegation, which is accredited for by the government for the HLPF. So you need to pay attention to this from the very beginning to avoid any misunderstandings and conflicts on the way. At the same time, we as MGoS can assist you with accreditation if you need one. So this is also possible, and it can be coordinated already with facilitators, which will be working with you at the national level. You must be able to travel to the US. We know that many colleagues need visas, and that's why we encourage you to pay attention to this already right now, especially I'm sorry to say we don't know what is happening under current US administration with migration policies, but this is definitely what you need to take into account if you need a visa and you don't have a valid visa for July 2025. And here again, we can try to do our best to provide our assistance in terms of if we can provide you a support letter or anything like this. And funding, we unfortunately, again, this year will face many difficulties in terms of funding for VNR speakers. And that's why, again, please, if you consider yourself to be a speaker or you want to be in the room during HLPF, please take care of your funding yourself. We will have some spots, but I believe it's really, I don't know, fingers on one hand, how many people we can support. I cannot even promise you that. And unfortunately, the situation is really critical, and that's why we really encourage you to think about it already right now. So once again, if you want to join the process, if you think that you have something to say, you have something to ask to your government during voluntary national review presentation and beyond, please engage, fill out the form. Here you can see again the link and QR code that you can use. And even more, I encourage you that if you are from Vienna country and you or you work with colleagues from Vienna country, please try to engage them, try to engage different groups, that it's not only one stakeholder group dominating the process. We really want to see diversity of voices from the ground, that everyone who have something to say should be able to say that during this process. And this is why we are here, to facilitate this process properly for you. And we also collect some resources. We will share this presentation with you after this webinar. And yeah, it's a participant survey, which I already mentioned. This is your entry point for the process. You please do not ignore it. We really need you to fill it out. It seemed to be maybe a bit long, but for us, it's really, every question is really important, and we really revise this survey every year. So please carefully fill it out. Don't misspell your email address. Check exactly the country you want to be engaged for. We also here you can see the link to the MGoS statements, which we are collecting from 2019. It's a really useful tool, because then you can see actually what colleagues or you maybe asked in the previous years, if government actually follow up the process during the period between VNRs or not. We also collected the MGOS.org parallel reports, another great tool, possibility to learn again maybe what has been done by our colleagues before for your country or other countries or neighboring countries. So yeah, something also, you also can submit your own report that it's in our database. In next months, we also will develop engagement documents in multiple languages. We usually use them, but this year we decided to collect them on a Padlet, and it also will be available for all of you, in order that you can see what kind of documentation we will use during the preparation, with different kind of recommendations, how you can formulate questions or comment in your statements, how you would select the speaker, and basically also, for example, we have a list of recommendations for the speakers already during the presentations at the HLPF. And the last resource I included, it's a document developed by the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Assembly, which basically gives us a background that we all have possibility to engage in a sustainable development agenda and all processes, including VNR. And I think for us as a civil society or wider stakeholder groups, it's really important to understand on which ground we stand in terms of engagement processes. And it's, I think, I find it also really useful document, for example, when we need to convince our governments to engage us in VNR processes. So from my side, that's it. I'll have a look at the questions, but again, here is our email address for the working group, and again QR code in terms of filling out the survey. And please, Oli, I see that you turned on your video in case you want to add something if I missed something.
Thank you so much, Nelya, and thank you for going through in so much detail, really clearly, step by step, what happens from now through till July. I hope that's been very clear to everyone. I have seen a few questions in the chat, which I thought perhaps I could answer one or two of those, because some of them are to do with technical questions. There's one question about which are the VNR countries that have been selected, and can additional countries be added? So I'm afraid that is a choice of your government. We're not in a position as the MGoS to add any additional countries for a particular VNR year. It's up to the member states to decide if they want to do a review. The example in the chat here is about Somalia, and I believe Somalia has been reviewed in other years. So what I would encourage you is, if your country is not currently under review, then you would need to speak to your government and encourage them to volunteer to take on a VNR perhaps next year or the year after. And we'll also share in the links a link to the VNR web page itself, where you can see all of the VNR countries going back to 2016, and you can see which year each of those countries was reviewed. And as Joop explained earlier in his presentation, you'll see that quite a few countries are now on their second or third or even fourth VNR. So in those cases, you'll be able to look back at what was said in the previous VNR and see what progress may have been made or not since the last time. One other point I wanted to also respond to is, in the chat, there was also a question about whether the VNRs should focus only on the specific goals under review, but that's not the case. The VNRs should cover all the goals. So in spite of the fact that every year the HLPF has a thematic focus, and that normally happens in the first week, where certain goals are given a greater prominence in the first week. When we get to the VNRs, they should cover all goals. And so when you're considering your own country's VNR, you should be looking at all the goals, all 17, and how has the progress been on all 17 goals. So just to be very clear, they are supposed to be a holistic analysis of progress across all the goals. So I just wanted to pick up those 2 points because I spotted them in the chat. Let me pass back to you, Nelya, if you'd like to answer some of the other questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also, I just go through the questions and please feel free to resend them if I miss something, because I also I saw the question that if should the question center one country or all countries involved? No, we will have 2-minute statement for each separate country. So when you engage in the process, which will be facilitated by us, you will work with your national group, the colleagues who focus on national processes, on national issues, and so on and so forth. So definitely questions should be, we actually would encourage you to focus only on your specific country, because you need to understand that these questions will be addressed to the minister or other of his colleagues of him or her sitting on the floor, and they will be able to answer these questions. If you suddenly will start to ask questions for another country, they simply would not be able to respond to that questions. So, and that's why I also want to emphasize, please do not register randomly for any country if you are not in the list of VNR countries, because we unfortunately will not be able to engage you if you just suddenly decided to join the process of some other country, because this is a really national process. So you can join the process, for example, if your NGO also works for that country and you think that it's really important to contribute to conversation. But even in this case, I think we will still would prioritize colleagues who works at the national level on the particular country. So please be aware that this list of 39 countries, it's not just there to I don't know, do some random thing. It's a really specific list, and we need to follow this list. And probably your country will be next year, and then you also probably would not want that somebody comes and dominates the process from another country. So this is also showing respect to colleagues that this is their year. They have possibility to communicate with their government on their issues. I also saw a question about visa, if everyone who joins the process will be able to get like visa letter support going to HLPF. For me, it's hard to say. I just know for sure that usually people who registered for HLPF, also through major groups and other stakeholders, and I believe that UN DESA this year will run the registration much earlier, which means that you will get probably a possibility to get even this official letter from the UN quite early if you register for HLPF. I am not sure that we will be able. I mean, you need to understand, if we have 39 countries, I mean, okay, not all of them need visas, but many of them need visas. And if we have 500 people registered, we will not be able to issue 500 letters, because we are also volunteer based process facilitators, and of course we will try to do our best, but I would really encourage you to consider other options, and also official registration to the HLPF. I don't know, Oli, if you also have something to add on that, and I will check.
I think you covered it well, Nelya. I mean, the reality is that as the MGoS, we don't have direct influence over the visa process. I think, as was explained by Nelya, that's ultimately handled by the United States authorities. We can certainly help to make sure that people receive letters of invitation, and we have been in touch already closely with UN DESA to make sure that the registration is open as early as possible, so that people can have clarity on whether or not they've been approved for the registration, and that should help with visas. But we do recognize that it's a challenging moment geopolitically, and we'll certainly do everything we can to help. We've also raised that with the president of ECOSOC himself, and he's aware of that challenge, and will continue to work closely with the UN team. I also saw one other question, Nelya, earlier in the chat, which asked about what common challenges do VNR countries face. I think that's a very important question. And from experience over the last 10 years, I guess I would highlight at least three common challenges. One of those challenges is around how to structure the engagement in the VNRs, and that's where the kinds of handbooks that you've heard about today and the different ways of bringing together civil society to have a strong collective voice can really help, because we know that different member states may have different structures in place, but they are not always aware of how diverse civil society is. And we think it's really essential, wherever possible, that we help you to come together in your countries so that you can then have a clear voice as part of that official engagement process. And that's something we can certainly help with if people would like to get in touch. I also think there's a question, quite a big question around implementation of the goals. This is something that's come up in many countries where when you come to a second or third VNR, we should now be looking at what has been the implementation for the last 10 years. How far have we actually progressed on the goals? And that would be, I guess, our encouragement to you is when you're engaging with your government to try to identify what has been that progress. Where are some of the movements happening? Where are the remaining challenges? How can we improve that implementation? And then thirdly, I think it's also worthwhile thinking about the financing for the goals. And this year, of course, there's also the Financing for Development conference happening in June, just before the HLPF. So there's an opportunity there to think about what kind of financing mechanisms are needed to really unlock the SDGs for the remaining 5 years. And again, that could be part of your discussions with your own governments around what more is needed to unlock that financing, and how can we work together to raise ideas when we come to the Financing for Development conference as well as the HLPF. So back to you, Nelya.
Yeah, thank you. I just added Tonya here because I at least don't know the answer to this question. When is the registration to the HLPF will be open? Colleagues ask Tonya if you are here with us, if you know the answer. I don't know, Oli, maybe you know the answer because I probably missed that. Tonya, are you here with us?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Nelya, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So really so much appreciation for the information you're providing today. And I'm jumping on here just because I know my colleague Joop is in another meeting, and I am happy to answer any questions as far as the registration. We are aiming to open up the registration for the HLPF in general through the Indico system as soon as possible. I know that colleagues are working on that now, and that is really important as far as having your registration completed so that it can help support an application for visa. But as Ali mentioned, the visa itself is really up to the U.S. consulate in each country. So all we can do is encourage people who are confirmed speakers to please register as soon as they can. When we have the names of confirmed speakers, then we can help to support you in the process if possible. I know the president of ECOSOC is very supportive of this year, but we anticipate that it will be very difficult. So let's work together, and we'll do our best to expedite the process. And the registration, as soon as it's open, we will send out an announcement. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tonya. I also see the question if colleagues can still engage if they are not from VNR country. And I actually thought I answered this question, but I see that it comes again. So I mean, definitely in such webinars as right now, it's not like, I hope that you learned something today. During the process, if you register for participation and you are not from VNR country, I mean, it will be really discussions about national issues, national processes, and you can still stay in touch, like try to get involved with some of the major groups, and I can also send the link to MGoS, MGOS.org. But in this case, I would really ask you to think twice, because we really want that colleagues at the national level engaging in their conversation, that we will facilitate, that they make a proper preparation for the process, because otherwise we will get this diffusion and misunderstanding why this person from another country suddenly joins, I don't know, discussion on VNR in Germany. And we really have then to even sometimes exclude colleagues who just randomly join some conversations, because they basically don't have anything to contribute to this process. So I really encourage you to think carefully, and really to engage, if you work with the country at least, or have some knowledge and understanding what should be in the statement, and follow up the next years, because we still have 4-5 years to go with VNRs, and there probably still will be possibility for you to engage. You also can talk to your government and encourage them to prepare VNR as soon as possible in order to engage in these processes with us. And I also see that there was another question about how can we as civil society in Vienna country encourage governments to follow through the commitments? Of course, it's really hard to say. The political situation in every country is completely different, and I am afraid that I will not be able in next 8 minutes provide universal recommendations. But of course, as I mentioned, that, for example, we find shadow reports is really an important tool, because this is a document with which you can walk through some years at least, if there are listed specific recommendations, and as if they're specific, really even directed to particular ministry or agency. Of course, it creates for you more possibilities, more space to follow up the process, to target particular I don't know, working departments that are targeting particular issue. And of course, we also tell stakeholders exactly because of that. When you prepare the statement, if you are targeting particular minister, if after presentation, you as a speaker, for example, or group of colleagues approach him and have a follow-up conversation, of course, it creates more possibilities to stay in touch. And we know these examples in previous years that colleagues really really created this kind of commitment that governments, I think in last year, when we conducted a survey, in 34% of replies from the governments, they actually gave a commitment already during the presentation. And it means that you can already, work with it, because the minister sitting in the chair during the presentation in the UN promised something, and of course it creates you a great base for the follow-up process. That's why when you are writing the statement, it's really important that it's specific and sometimes really targeting the minister who sits actually in the chair and presents the VNR. I don't know if you have something to add on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nelya. This is really a crucial question, how to build that momentum at the country level. And it is a little beyond the scope of just the 2-minute statement. So primarily today, we've been talking about how you can bring that 2-minute statement, how you can bring your specific recommendations. But I fully agree with Nelya that there is a wider process that hopefully is already underway in your country, where you're bringing together a wider coalition and you maintain that dialogue with your government. And certainly the opportunity to put together spotlight report, shadow report, people's scorecard, as you heard earlier, we can certainly follow up and help to signpost you to where those different toolkits are. I see one more question that I think we didn't respond to from report out, which was around if you have researchers working in various different countries, how would they contribute? So again, I think as Nelya has explained, if you do have experts or members of your team who are focusing on particular countries, they would need to sign up separately to each of the countries where they have an interest, and they would then join the drafting team for that country. So typically, we might have between 30 to 100 interested stakeholders from a particular country. And they would then come together, as Nelya said, to collectively draft this 2-minute statement. So it's really important if you do have someone who's active in any of the 39 countries that they sign up for each of those countries separately. And that way they'll be logged in into our database and we can make sure that they're included in the discussions. Nelya, do you want to explain a bit more about that and how that process will work going forward?
Yeah, so, but basically, this is what I was already explaining. But yeah, for us right now, it's important that you register through this form, that we have your name under particular country. As Oli said, you need to, if you, for example, work for different VNR countries, which are listed this year exactly, you need to fill the form out several times, because then we have your record for each country. And after that, right now, we are in the process of collecting this interest, and we encourage you to fill out the form as soon as possible. And again, we will try to engage colleagues through the regional forums, and around March or April, we already will start to work with these groups, with those colleagues who signed up, and start to work on the statement preparation. We intentionally don't start this process too early, because colleagues also get lost in distracted by other loads of their work and other processes. So that's why we already over years developed this practice that we start around April, that people can focus on the preparation, on collecting the data, questions, reviewing. Maybe the VNR text is already available, that people actually can refer to the draft provided by the government. And then we also collectively decide who will be the speaker, and help you with the processes of registration, visa letters when it's possible. As Tonya said, especially if you are selected speaker and you confirmed early enough, there are more possibilities to provide you with any kind of support. So I hope that this is what you meant, Oli, just to clarify it again.
Exactly. Yes, I think it's just reminding people of those steps. Absolutely right. Yeah. And it seems like we also have in the chat various people highlighting different spotlight reports. And again, Nelya can share the link that was mentioned before, that you can find all of the different stakeholder parallel reports, civil society reports on the major groups and other stakeholders page as well. So you can have a look and you can see reports from the country where you might be reporting this year, and you can compare what did the stakeholders say, 2 or 3 years ago. So we'll make sure that that is provided to help you to see what the progress has been since last time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we are right on time. I see that Oli, you also shared some links. So again, how can we get the contact of specific country drafting team? We are collecting your contacts right now. So you need to make sure that you fill out the form and all the data correct, your email address is correct. And then you actually immediately should receive email in terms of where we again clarify that around April you will be contacted by this email by your facilitator, and this facilitator will bring you together to the process. And maybe the last point that I didn't mention, that we also start with this process really carefully. And in the first meeting, we actually do not reveal all the names, because we understand that in some countries, the situation with the civic space is different. And that's why we always, just that you know, that we make sure that everyone is safe. And we do not share this information with the colleagues who are engaging at the national level without your permission. So usually at the first meetings, we ask colleagues if everyone is fine with working with their real names, and if everyone is open to have a open and transparent process of engagement. Just, another point I forgot to mention, just to make sure that you feel safe and know that the data you providing with your name or your email address is properly kept and will not be provided to member states or any other stakeholder groups without your permission.
That's a really good reminder, Nelya. And just to emphasize that if at any point in the build-up to the HLPF, any stakeholder feels any intimidation or potential a threatening behavior, then please do let us know. And we report that to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights as well. They are following the VNR process very closely as well, so we can raise any concerns that you may have, and please do let us know if there are any situations like that. It's been such a rewarding discussion, and thank you so much for all the questions. And thank you again to UN DESA for the excellent collaboration. We had such a clear presentation from Joop at the beginning, and for those who might have joined late, you will be able to watch this again. Nelya will make it available, and we really appreciate all of your engagement and look forward to working with you all in the coming months as we gear up towards the HLPF in 2025. Nelya, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, we will, as Oli mentioned, follow up with the email where we will provide link for the recording and also the slides. And I hope see all of you, or at least a part of you, in our engagement process, and probably in New York during HLPF. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.